Good evening and welcome to tonight's City of Homewood Council meeting, August 12th, 2019. We're going to begin tonight with our invocation from Dr. Bill Johnston of Dawson Memorial Baptist Church. We're always honored to have you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for the honor of being here. Father, as summer break comes to a close and our schools are opening, and we're just so grateful for the Homewood school system we have, and we just pray your blessings upon the administration, staff, the faculty, teachers, the students, and for the tax-paying supporters that give to make what our school system is. We just pray your blessings upon a good year. We pray for protection upon the students who are out in the heat with preseason practices and things, and just give wisdom to those who direct and lead them. We also thank you for this body here tonight. Thank you for their deliberation, for the work they do and service they give to our community. We pray that everything done here tonight will be done with dignity and with honor and of each other. And we thank you for how that's carried on here and the freedom that we have within this nation. So again, we ask your blessings. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Please follow. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, we'll begin call for the order today with roll call. Miss Melody.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gwaltney?
Here.
Mr. Thames? Mr. Higginbotham?
Here.
Mr. Wolverton? Mr. McCluskey?
Here.
Mr. Jones? Mrs. Smith? Here. Mr. Wyatt? Mrs. Andress? Here. Mr. Wright?
Here.
And President Limbaugh.
All right. So
You got 5 out, but you got a quorum. Barely.
Barely scraping. We got all the important good people here tonight. So that's correct. Quality over quantity. All right. I'll begin with entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes from July 22nd, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
By Mrs. Smith, second by Miss Andress. All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. And we're going to go on to board vacancies. Let me begin. I know we have one on Arts Council, Ward 5. We have a term expiring on August 2019. And Melody, we need to reopen that. I think we have someone who's going to perhaps renew a term, but we're going to go and when we reopen that until our meeting on September 9th.
Okay. So we reopen until 9/9 at 4:30.
Okay. That should give plenty of time if anyone else wants to drop their name in for that spot. And I believe we have another one, Miss Andress.
Yes, we are going to appoint Lindsay Chitwood to the Hydra, please.
Okay, Lindsay Chitwood to the Hydra Board. Is that Ward 5 or is that
It's
at
at
large?
Is at large.
Is at large? Okay. All right. So I'll entertain that as a motion from Ms. Andress. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Smith. Any discussion? All in favor?
It's the Hydra IDB.
This way.
Is what he told me on that. Hydra IDB.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so that's going to pass 6-0. We'll let the record reflect that Mr. Wolverton has just joined us. And with that, we're going to go into our agenda, which will begin with our amended agenda. And thanks to everyone for adding not 5, but 6 items, and hang in there with as I go through them. Item 160819, request for consideration to authorize the mayor to sign a liability waiver with Autel Robotics for a UAV donation coming to us from Chief Bresnan and Lieutenant Brandon Broadhead from the Fire Department. We're going to assign that to Special Issues Committee. Item number 170819, request to address noise and trash pickup ordinance violations behind Edgewood restaurants and businesses near Ruby Sunshine Restaurant. Coming to us from yours truly. We're going to assign that to Special Issues as well. Item 180819, request for consideration to address traffic and speeding issues on Lancaster. from Jennifer Andrus. We'll assign that one to Public Safety Committee. Item number 190819, request for consideration to reconfigure intersection convergence of Vulcan Road behind 228 Oxmoor Boulevard, coming from Andrew Wolverton. We'll assign that one to Public Safety Committee as well. And item number 200819, request for consideration of traffic calming policy, I guess that's for citywide, from Britt Thames, also going to Public Safety Committee. And lastly, 210819, which is a request for permission to place a new pole and cell site in the city of right-of-way on Goodwin Crest, from Mark Slavinsky and Greg Cobb of the BEZ. We're going to go ahead and assign that one to Public Works. Yes, do you have something?
I was going to see if it was possible to add one more. That I thought it was still on there, but it apparently got dropped in a resolution or in moving things to sidewalk. So it was just consideration for traffic safety measures along Oak Grove Road at South Point Drive. So I've talked to Randy and he's looking.
Have you talked, Melody? Are you?
Well, I just had a question on 210819, unless I've lost something. I had from Greg that it was a request for the city to accept right-of-way at the end of Edgecrest Drive.
I had Goodwin Crest on this memo.
You want a memo again?
Yep, I have Goodwin Crest on this. Is that not
I
correct?
thought we had talked about that.
It's. Oh, that's a pole. That's a power pole. This is a right of way.
Are you adding two items, Greg?
Do you have two or?
I didn't bring that one tonight. That was from last week.
That was last time.
That's from
We
last
discussed
time.
that.
We've already got, it's still in committee.
Okay.
Remember we asked him to bring
Okay.
us all his data?
I'm go-
Explain why I needed the pole.
Can I replace it?
I don't
No,
know.
I can't cover about place with this one.
In committee, we asked for that gentleman to come to the committee meeting next week and bring his data.
So it's carried over in committee?
Okay, so the one you handed me is not, we don't need it. You can take that. All right. 2108, yes, sir, you did. All right, so 210819.
Up off the top of my desk.
All right. Let's,
It's requested
let's,
set right away.
let me read this again. This is a different 210819, and the new and correct one is going to be a request for the city to accept right-of-way at the end of Edgecrest Drive to allow access to property to the west, coming to us from Bill Hickman and Greg Cobb of the BEZ. Any further? Okay.
Makes sense.
All right, and we're going to go ahead and assign this one to Public Works. And lastly, Andrew, did you have one to add?
Yes.
Okay, so Melody, if you're okay with this, we're going to do 220819, is that
Yes, sir.
correct? All right, and it is what, sir?
Consideration for traffic safety measures along Oak Grove Road at South Point Drive.
Along Oak Grove Road at where?
At South Point Drive. And Randy's already looked at it, so.
All right, traffic safety measures, so I assume we're going to assign this to public safety. Okay, so I count 7 items. Anything further? I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda tonight as amended. By Mr. Higginbotham, second by Mr. Gwaltney. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the agenda as revised is approved. We'll begin with consent agenda. I'll begin with entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda
So moved.
by Mrs. Smith,
Second.
second by Ms. Andrus. Any discussion on any of these? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda is approved. All right, we're getting into old business agenda. I'm going to take one item out of order. We're going to go ahead and begin with 210619, which is a request to perform grading on the edge of Fox property, coming to us from Brian Hatcher and Greg Cobb. And this is 210619, and I believe we have a report from Special Issues.
Yes, we do. The committee met last week, and we heard from Mr. Ratcliffe, who works for the development company, and we voted 4-0 to recommend approval of them creating a landscape sloped area rather than building a retaining wall. And we had that looked at and approved by Keith Strickland, who is working on the trail, the Greenway for us. And that motion was made by Ms. Andrus and seconded by Mr. McCluskey. And that was approved with proper oversight by Mr. Strickland so that the grading is done within, so that it's not going to affect the Greenway design.
All right, so that came out of committee 4-0 vote. I'll entertain that as a motion for approval. I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. McCluskey. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that passes 7-0, and I believe that's resolution 19-119. Mike, if I'm right about that. All right, next item will be 1601-15, update on past, present, and future sidewalks from Greg Cobb and the Building Engineering and Zoning Department, and I believe we have a report from Finance on this item.
Yes. Finance Committee met last week and voted 5-0 to recommend approval of funding $40,000 to build a sidewalk that will connect Central Avenue to the Montessori School. And the motion was made by Mr. Wright, seconded by Counselor Thames. And again, that was 5-0. And the only thing I don't know is, Miss Melody, is that coming out of the sidewalk fund? Is that money coming out of the sidewalk fund? That's the only thing I don't have.
I think
in my
it
notes.
was carryover fund balance going to be put in the sidewalk construction fund.
Okay, all right, there you go. So that's it.
Great, thank you, Ms. Smith. So I'll entertain as a motion for approval. I'll entertain a second. Second by Mr. Gwaltney. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that will pass by a vote of 6-0. Mr. Wolverton has stepped out. Next item, 010519, request for consideration to amend ordinance 2706 to change the definition of qualifying sites to remove the 1 acre minimum and update the water quality value calculations, coming to us from Amy Milam and the Homewood Environmental Commission and myself. And we're going to get a report from Public Works, which Mr. McCluskey is going to handle for us.
Absolutely. The committee met and voted 4-0 to recommend eliminating the inspection forms and changing the acreage to 1 acre minimum. The motion was made by Councilor McCluskey, seconded by Councilor Wyatt.
All right, thank you, Mr. McCluskey. And I believe this is going to be a change of an ordinance, so we're going to have our first reading, Mike?
Yes, there's an ordinance to regulate stormwater management post-construction. Essentially, this ordinance adopts the previous requirements with the one change that you've outlined, and deleting any reference in the addendum to any exhibits that were agreed upon by the committee at the last committee meeting. So we're essentially adopting with the changes a new ordinance that repeals the old stormwater ordinance. That was ordinance number 2706. So this ordinance would repeal that ordinance and adopt a new ordinance with the modifications that you outlined.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kendrick. I'll entertain a motion for unanimous consent on this.
So moved.
By Mr. Higginbotham, second by Mr. McCluskey.
Mr. Chair,
Discussion from Mr.
Yeah,
Higginbotham.
before we proceed, I just want to be clear because it sounded like I heard two different things from up here. So this is removing the 1 acre minimum. Yes, I just want us to be clear about what we're doing here.
Correct, Mike,
I
correct.
heard something to the
Yeah.
contrary. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
What did you hear the contract?
Any further discussions or questions? All right, roll call vote, Melody.
Mr. Gwaltney? Yes, ma'am. Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
And Mr. Wright?
Yes. All right, so we have unanimous consent approved by a vote of 7-0. I'll entertain a motion now for approval.
Second.
By Mr. Higginbotham, second by Mr. Gwaltney. Roll call vote, Melody.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a vote of 7-0, and that's ordinance, I believe, new ordinance will be 2754.
Yes.
All right, that stands as approved. Next item, 120619, request to consider agreement between the City of Homewood and Sanford University, coming to us from our Counselor Alex Wyatt. And I believe we do get a report from Planning and Development tonight on that.
Yes, the committee met, and after a report from Counselor Wyatt and discussion with Buck Brock of Sanford University and other residents, voted 4-0 to recommend approval and send to the council for carryover until August 26th council meeting. The motion was made by Counselor Wyatt and was seconded by myself.
All right, so it's going to be a request to carry this item over for a vote until August 26th. Without any objection, we will do that. All right, next item is going to be 07-07-19, request for consideration for permission to work in the city right-of-way adjacent to 507 Morris Boulevard. And this is a item from Special Issues. I believe we have a report from Special Issues.
Yes, committee met last week and voted 4-0 to recommend approval of allowing the residents to work in the right-of-way with the proper indemnification agreements. Motion was made by Ms. Anderson, seconded by Counselor Higginbotham.
Okay, I'll take that as a motion from Mrs. Smith for approval. Entertain a second. Second by Mr. Higginbotham. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And so I believe that's going to be is that going to be a resolution, Mike?
Yes, sir, it is, 121.
121, resolution 121, okay. All right, so that stands as approved. Next item, 130719, which is a request for consideration of declaring the following vehicle surplus: a 2005 International 4400 and a 1998 International 4900, coming to us from Gordon Janes, Fleet Maintenance, and Berkeley Squires, our Public Services Director. And this is coming from Finance, and as I understand, there may be an additional vehicle.
There is an additional vehicle to add. There was an emergency add due to the car needing to be released to the insurance company, and they did not have that information when we had our committee meeting last week. So we're going to be declaring, Finance Committee met last week. We declared the two vehicles that night that were on our list to be declared surplus. It's a 2005 International 4400 and a 1998 International 4900 6x4. And then we're adding tonight a 2006 International 4400 with the last of the VIN numbers 198389. And again, this is from Gordon James, and this is a car that was a vehicle that was totaled that needs to be taken by the insurance company. So that's why we're adding that at this late date. And the motion was made to approve declaring the item surplus by myself and was seconded by Mr. Higginbotham. And that was a 5-0 vote coming out of Finance.
And so, Mike, is it okay for us just to add that one?
Yes, sir, I think we'd need a motion.
A motion, okay, I'll entertain a motion for approval since we're going to have all three vehicles on this one instead of just two.
It's an ordinance, so we'll have to have a reading first.
Okay,
Right.
I'm sorry, excuse me. So let's get a first reading first from Mr. Kendrick on that, adding all three vehicles.
It's an ordinance to declare certain personal property and equipment as surplus. Hereby is established and declared the following described property of the city sanitation department and Homewood Fleet Maintenance Department are no longer needed for public or municipal purposes and declared surplus property. The following property: 2005 International 4400, 1998 International 4900, and 2006 International 4400. Section 2, the mayor and the clerk be authorized to dispose of the property by auction to the highest bidder.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion now for unanimous consent to bring this up by Mr. McCluskey,
Second.
second by Mrs. Smith. Roll call vote, Melody.
Mr. Gwaltney? Yes, ma'am. Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
And Mr. Wright?
Yes. And now I will entertain a motion for approval again of all three vehicles instead of just the two. By Mrs. Smith and a second by Mr., a second by Mr. McCluskey. Do I have to get a roll call vote
Yes, sir.
again? So I'll take a roll call vote, Ms. Melody.
Okay, Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes, and so that passes by a vote of 7-0, and that'll be ordinance 2755, I believe. It stands as approved. Next item is 180719, which is a public hearing that's going to be set for August 26, 2019 at 6 o'clock for consideration to rezone property at 3021 Firefighter Lane from an R5 attached dwelling unit district to R4 attached dwelling unit district. So we're basically going from R5 to R4. Coming to us from applicant of Jason Hale, who's the owner of Willow Homes, to permit the development of one new residential house and one existing house renovation comprising of 2 lots currently within 1 parcel. Detached dwelling units allowed in R4. The Planning Commission had a unanimous vote of 8-0 for favorable recommendation of this rezone. And again, this is going to come to us on a public hearing set for August 26, 2019 at 6 o'clock. Next item, request for consideration of the Homewood Environmental Commission's fiscal year 2019-2020 budget presentation from Amy Milam with the Homewood Environmental Commission. This came to our Finance Committee, so I'll ask for a report from Finance. Ms. Smith.
Yes, last week in our committee meeting, we heard a presentation on the budget from Matthew Rich, who's the treasurer of the HEC, and then we voted 5-0 to recommend approving their budget request for this upcoming year budget of $12,436 to budget hearings, which will occur later this month. Motion was made by Mr. Higginbotham and seconded by myself.
Thank you. I'll take that as a motion for approval. Entertain a second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Andrus. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That will pass by a vote of 7-0. I don't believe that's a resolution, is it, Mike?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, next item, 2107-19, request for consideration for permission to work in the city right-of-way at 228 Crest Drive to install a parking pad. This came to us from Dr. Bill Reed and Councilor Barry Smith, and also went to Mrs. Smith's committee at Special Issues. So I'll take a report from Mrs. Smith.
Yes, committee met, voted 4-0 to recommend approving the permission to work on the right-of-way pending indemnification agreements being signed. Motion was made by Ms. Anderson, seconded by Councilor Higginbotham.
All right, thank you, Ms. Smith. I'll take that as a motion for approval and entertain a second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Andrus. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that stands approved on a vote of 7-0, and I believe, Mike, that's resolution 19-122.
Yes, sir.
All right, on to our committee referral agenda that has been amended. I will entertain a motion for approval of the amended committee referral agenda
So moved. Second.
by Mr. Higginbotham, second by Mrs. Andrus. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The amended committee referral agenda is approved by a vote of 7-0. That gets us to other new business in this rapid fire meeting we have going on. Next item, 090819, which is a request to set a public hearing for a variance to the Homewood fence ordinance to allow a front yard fence at 1604 Roseland Drive, coming to us from Lee Hammonds and Wyatt Pugh and Greg Cobb with BEZ. We're going to set that for public hearing also on August 26th at 6 o'clock without objection. Next item, 100819, request for consideration for vapor testing and completing the sampling task for VCP, coming to us from Jeremy Mitchell and JJ Bischoff, our chief of staff. And JJ, you want to tell us briefly what this one's about?
The old yuppie puppy or Mayfield cleaning site back here, we've got to finish up some testing for AIM.
Okay.
So we've got the money in the budget for it.
All right, so we got the money already in the budget. It's a matter of just,
Yeah, this is the property that we, that's tested behind it. We have a fund of $100,000 that we got from the former owners of Mayfield Cleaners. And we're down, I think the balance is $84,000. The cost of that will be paid out of that specialized fund that we received from the former owners as a condition of us taking the property.
gotcha. So we're just pulling out some money to do some of the additional
It's already
testing.
earmarked, yes, sir.
Gotcha, okay. I'll entertain a motion for approval of this item by Mr. McCluskey,
Second.
second by Mrs. Smith. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that's going to pass by a vote of 7-0 as well, and that will be 19-122. Excuse me, 123.
Yes, sir.
All right, next item is 110819, which is a request for consideration for funding of $580,000 for a land closing, coming to us from our city attorney, Mike Kendrick. And Mike, I think we know a lot about this, but I don't know if you want to.
It's the property we're purchasing on Green Springs for the new fire station. It's been previously approved, the contract just said be paid out of bond funds, and Melody wants you to tell her what fund to pay it out of.
I have the information on the line item and the funding source.
Okay.
I got that just before the meeting.
All right, great. All right, so this will require a report from finance. You got that?
Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
The line item that the land will be purchased from will be 26-11-581607, which is a land acquisition line item. And the funding source is going to be 2609499301 carryover fund balance, and we are going to use interest that we received as from the partial bond refund of the 2016 bonds. There's $680,000 in that line item, so that will cover the cost.
All right, any further questions? I'll entertain a motion for approval. By Mr. Wolverton and a second by Mr. Gwaltney. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that's going to pass by a vote of 7-0, and that will be resolution 19-1.
It's not a resolution.
It's not,
It was
okay.
previously approved when we authorized the contract to be sold.
Okay.
I think Melody just wanted direction which fund to bring it out of.
Gotcha, okay. It won't be a resolution, but that'll pass by a vote of 7-0 for
I just need
funding
to
of
send
that.
it to me before the closing.
Gotcha. You got what you need.
You need to make a note then that we gotta send you money? Let me
It
mark
was
it
not for
down.
me, I wished it was.
Send to your firm.
Next item, 120819, request for consideration of an ABC retail beer and retail table wine licenses for New Gin Wing Inc., doing business as Yummy Bowl, located at 109 Wildwood Parkway. And Patrick, can you tell me where we stand on this one?
Yes, we've received letters from both police and fire, so I would move to having no objection to issuance of the license.
All right, so I have a motion from Mr. McCluskey for approval.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure. Question from Mr. Wolverton.
I just wasn't sure. It sounded like there were a few people that had, I personally have not gone out there yet, but it sounded as though their signs may not be in compliance with, that originally they were on the agenda and then they kind of fell off and disappeared. And I had heard from somebody in the community that there's still a sign issue, so.
All right, well, Mr. Cobb is coming up here with answers on
If
his
you
face, so.
remember, they came back to the council and requested 2 signs, one that faces, I guess, south, one that faces east. And the agreement was they had to take down that tall sign. So if that's what's there, then they would be correct, but I've not been over there to look at it.
Yeah, I thought we had discussed a monument sign, correct?
They did talk about a monument sign that was within the limits of what's allowed.
Right. It sounded like there's one that may not be in compliance, I guess, that's on the building.
Well,
But again, I haven't not had time to verify, but I didn't know.
I've not gone to look at it myself.
Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna,
I don't want to hold it up necessarily, but
well, you can
but
certainly,
possibly.
yeah.
I mean, if they.
I mean, this is,
I couldn't remember how we left it when they came for the sign variance. It didn't sound like, I don't remember voting on anything.
We gave them the 2 on the building attached, one facing south, one facing west, and we gave them the monument sign. If they backed it up, they had agreed to back it up off our right-of-way. I think the distance was 12 feet, and it backed up to their planted area. It was too close to the road. We make them back it up to the planted area, and that's what my memory tells me we did. It's supposed to be down. I haven't been to look at
well,
it.
if there's,
The pole sign had to come down. Yes, sir. The big one that said whatever the former restaurant was.
well, we can certainly do a check on if there's any violation of our sign ordinance, and they can certainly, that can be enforced as needed if something exists with regard to that. We're here on beer and wine license. Certainly you can vote however you feel on that, but that's, unless there's some, I don't know if any further discussion to carry this over or not, I would go ahead and think I'm going to bring this up for entertain a motion for approval.
My motion still stands.
All right, for motion from Mr. McCluskey, I think I second from Mrs. Smith. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I'm just gonna abstain.
Abstain, with one abstention. So, okay, that's fine. It'll be 6-0 and one abstention on that one, and that will not be a resolution either. Okay.
No, sir, that's just no objection.
Gotcha. Next item, 130819, which is a request for consideration of another restaurant retail liquor license for Guisados y Tortas Locas LLC, doing business as Tortas Locas, located at 44 Green Springs Highway, coming to us from Melody Salter. And where are we on this one, Mr.
I'm so
McCluskey?
glad you got to say it.
That's I know, me too.
It was,
Great
it was,
job.
it was,
No, no, Mr. Wright.
it was Tres Años de Español.
We have not received letters from fire nor police in this, but I would move to having no objection to the issuance of the license pending their approval letters.
Okay, we've done this before. So I got a motion for pending approval of fire and police, and I have a second from Mr. Hickenbotham. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, with those amendments, that will pass by a vote of 7-0. Still flying by here, we go to 140819, which is a request for consideration to change our council meeting dates, which we discussed previously, but here we're going to make it formal. For October 2019, we're going to request for our council meeting dates to be October 7th and October 21st. For the month of November, requesting council dates to be November 4th and November 18th, and for December, council dates for December 9th and December 16th. I can give you all various explanations for what's going on for all those months, but those are the dates, and the committee meeting changes we will discuss later. We're not going to do that tonight. You can ask a quick question.
What are you going to do about our committee meetings that should be scheduled for that first Monday in September, which is actually Labor Day?
Well, this one,
This is
okay,
October.
this is October. So
Yes, valid.
Yes. Are we going to do, are we?
It's a valid concern.
I don't think, know if
No.
Mr. Limbaugh's, I sent an email asking that question too, and I don't know if he's decided whether we were going to do them before the meeting on the 9th. So sometimes we do them on the night before council, but he didn't answer me yet on that one.
I cannot imagine we're going to have committee days on Labor Day,
No,
so.
I just,
so-
while we were changing, I figured it
But he had
You're-
he had talked about having a couple of them for October, November on nights other than Monday, so maybe he'll move it to a Tuesday, or we could do it on the 9th. He didn't say on that.
What was the reason? Sorry.
For all these date
Yeah,
changes?
that's a lot of date changes. I
Don't-
mean, the December I understand, but.
Well, because Veterans Day, one of the dates was on 11/11,
They all have
which was
various-
Veterans Day.
Yeah, I see that.
And then the next one was going to be the Monday before Thanksgiving, I believe.
But October,
Um,
One of them is, I'm sorry, because I think the council meeting date's going to be.
I think Mike was out of town for,
another holiday.
yeah.
Okay.
And Mike
There's
was
a
out of
public
town
hearing also
for
scheduled.
late
so-
October.
Okay.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for approval of just those special council meeting dates for the months of October, November, and December. By Mr. McCluskey, second by Mrs. Smith. Any further discussions or questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's going to pass by a vote of 7-0. And again, we will visit what we're going to do about Labor Day and what we're going to do about our committee meeting times, which will also have to be altered due to these new council dates. All right, next item, which I believe is our last item, 150819, which is a request for consideration of approval of vouchers for the period of July 23rd, 2019 through August 12th, 2019. And I believe Mr. Hickenbotham had the answer.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I did review the vouchers, had some questions answered by Mr. Begat, and cleared up a 20-cent discrepancy. So with that, I would move approval of the item.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain that as a motion. I'll entertain a second for approval of those vouchers. By Mr. Wolverton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those receipts are approved as proposed. And I believe that brings us to the end of the agenda. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. So all the times I didn't say anything after the meeting, I may make up for it tonight. But I'll be as quick as I can because you've done a great job getting through this meeting. But just want to say welcome back to our young folks starting school today. Judging from the amount of council people, it must have been rougher than we thought. But just a big thanks to our teachers and the administration for all they do and all they're going to do this year for the kids. So we expect another great year for the city of Homewood for our schools. The park will be having their back-to-school bash at Patriot Park from 4:30 to 8:30. That's going to be on Saturday, August the 24th. Did I say at Patriot Park? You did. The library, they're going to have their 6th annual block party. That's going to be on August the 17th, I think from 5 until 8. The Chambers Golf Classic, Chamber of Commerce Golf Classic, it's going to be held at Top Golf on August the 22nd. That's a Thursday. Registration begins at 2 p.m. And then just a couple more items. Our next council meeting, which will be on the 26th, we're putting some, I won't say finishing touches, but we're a lot closer to finishing touches on the budget. So we fully expect to make the presentation to the full council on August the 26th. And then I know y'all will send that to finance, but we're excited. I think it's going to be another really good budget for y'all. So maybe it won't have to take a long time in committee. And then last but not least, Sydney, is this still it? It's still it. Well, all right. So I hate, if you don't know already, I'll just let you know that I guess tonight's the last meeting that Sydney is going to cover for us. She's been with the Homewood Star a long time, covered us for a long time, has done a really good job. So, Sydney, we will miss you. Thank you for all that you've done for the city. I think technically the 16th is your last day. See, I do read your emails. But the 16th is her last day. She's going to be working for a book publisher, and we certainly wish her much success in her new endeavors and new job, and we'll look forward to watching her grow. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, Mr. Gwaltney.
Nothing this evening.
I like that. Mr. Hickenbottom
Nothing for me, Mr. Chairman.
and Mr. Wolverton.
Just a couple quick things. Patrick's not here, but I wanted to thank him for lending his son this past summer. He was a camp counselor for Ruby and Wesley, as well as, I believe, Mr. Thames' son. What's that? Walter's son. Sorry. What did I say?
You said McCluskey.
McCluskey. I met Mr. Jones. I'm sorry. Your son grew a few years, right? But they had a blast, and so I just want to thank the Parks Department again for everything that they do to put together an affordable and great option for citizens of Homewood. A couple other things. We are tentatively going to set our quarterly kind of town hall community meeting, Homewood Church of Christ, on August 22nd. Probably start about 6:15. We'll have more details kind of forthcoming there. And then just wanted to say thank you to the schools and the police department for what seems to be a successful relocation of the afternoon carpool line that was congesting Oak Grove Road. So we kind of talked about it over the past few months, and things seemingly were implemented smoothly this afternoon for the first day of school. So Yeah, and then we are talking again about doing another street safety day, probably in September. So we'll have more details on that later on.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Wolverton. Mr. McCluskey?
Well, I'm assuming Walter has 5 o'clock. So down for next week.
I'm afraid so.
Okay.
Somehow that tradition began.
3, 4, 5, 6. He has 8 items, or maybe 9, that might be on his agenda, yeah. So I'm guessing he probably needs 30 minutes.
Okay. And with the Sanford thing being here, is there anything on P&D?
Oh, yes, we have, hold on, they're all carryovers. Sorry. The tree ordinance, if there's any update on the 18th Street revitalization project, if there are any sidewalk projects, those are all carryovers. But I feel like the tree ordinance, Amy, we're probably going to talk about next Monday, right?
We've got a little more.
We do, oh, okay, okay. Do you think we'll carry that over?
Well, I think probably because we talked about the sidewalks for the Montessori school kind of being the last.
That's the last
project
there.
For this until we get to the next budget year.
Okay, so what about the 18th Street revitalization? Do you know anything about that, Andy?
I mean, it's moving along. I think it's at 90% engineering. They've been submitted to Aldot.
Okay, so you don't think we'll need to meet on that?
Discuss it yet.
So we don't need to set P&D then? Okay.
Okay.
Ask Brett to get a response.
Okay. All right, well then I'll take 5:30 for public safety and I know we got some stuff added, but I don't think, I mean, some of the stuff's gonna take, yeah.
Lancaster?
Oh, I know.
Okay. That may take a while.
Well, I mean, but with stuff that's kind of in place now, I mean, it's just discussion. I mean, I'll give it 30 minutes and we'll see.
All right. Is that it, Mr. McCluskey?
That's it.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Smith?
Just wanted to say I was so excited when we got to tour the high school last week. Was very pleasantly surprised at all the work that they had gotten completed, and talked to my son today, and the cafeteria was a resounding success. So that was a good thing. And I'll say, you know, that's for another day, Peter. That's
No
another
comment.
discussion. But yeah, exactly. But I'll set special issues for 6 and the trash issues. Lord, does that seem like that's something that might bring people? Okay.
6:30.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let me just take 30 minutes to be safe.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Smith. So we'll set special issues at 6. And Miss Andrews?
I just reiterate what the mayor said and what Ms. Smith said. I really enjoyed the tour last week at the school, and want to thank all the work that the Board of Education's done and Dr. Cleveland, and it looked fantastic, and it's going to be a fantastic completion when that high school is done. It's going to look amazing. Sydney, wish you the very best and hope you stay in touch and come see us on Monday nights. Look forward to seeing everybody at the block party on Saturday night. That's all I got.
Great. Okay, well, since y'all left me to the very last, I'll set Public Works at 6:30. And just a quick congratulations and kudos on the work and that's ongoing with the school, with the high school, and it really was. I would urge you guys, if you get a chance to go over and look at it, it's pretty darn vast, is what got me, and real excited to some extent about what hasn't been finished, and that's going to be very, very exciting to see that. So we wish them all the best of luck as they work through really another school year, and best of luck, most importantly, to those students and the teachers and administrators working through it. But the end is near and it's in sight. And all the funds are going to be committed by November as required for those bond proceeds. And lastly, Sydney, my gosh, we're going to miss you, and really a lot of thanks and gratitude to you for what you have provided to our city, in having to cover all our good deeds and our bad deeds and our good steps and our missteps, and you've done a very noble job in keeping our citizens informed and keeping us on our toes, and we're very grateful, and we're going to miss you and just hope that your replacement is going to learn a lot from you, and you're going to get them well-trained for us. So thank you and best of luck to you. You've really been a joy to work with and moving our city forward, so thank you. And with that, we will stand adjourned for tonight. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Wright, high five.
Well, that's what they said.